So let's do this. Let's take a moment, breathe like a little relaxing in and out breath to be able to face this market as a buyer. Because it is definitely different than it has been. And it was already pretty competitive. You know, and I know that last week I did a market update. So if you guys haven't seen that market update, that's in our YouTube channel also. So I really talk about how the prices are working and what's been happening in different counties and different areas, and how we kind of have two separate markets. The sort of used to just be weekend versus full-time market, and now it's really people who can earn more money working remotely or earning money working in New York City versus Stuart. There we go, watching over us. Little doggy. And it's the main character. Oh yeah. Actually, can someone, Jen, you want to put the link for YouTube down in the chat? That'd be awesome. I think you can also just Google Upstate real estate on YouTube. It's super basic. Like, we don't have even like descriptions and stuff. You know, we're gonna get better at all that. But yeah, and the link to all the YouTube videos is also in my LinkedIn profile in Instagram. So FYI, which reminds me is that I should always start these videos by saying, hello, I am Megan Brenwhite. I am the head of the Upstate real estate team, and I'm a licensed real estate agent. We are, our team is based at Keller Williams Realty, Hudson Valley North, which is in Kingston, but we work across a pretty huge area. I got in trouble with Monica the other day because I said 6 counties, and she was like, it's way more than 6. I don't know where you're working. But you know, the team kind of lives all over the place. We're watching the markets all over the place. So it's sort of, that part has been built into our DNA since the beginning. And this gets back to this idea of these two kind of different markets. That the clients that we've worked with and the clients who generally have tended to find us through Instagram are people who often people who have some pretty specific criteria about design, about character, about having, a home that's not like right on a road or super noisy, or all these different things that in particular were really important last year. This year, now we're getting people who also want a home office, space to have more guests, like the house searches people are open to bigger homes. But it's been kind of the same thing. Like if you look at like the number of homes that are sold a year up here, and I did pull some of that information also. But if you look at the number of homes that are sold a year in this area, and then you think about the percentage of homes that you personally like while you're looking at Zoom, it's a pretty small percentage. So, if I look here, we have, right now in the entire Hudson Valley region, so this even includes Westchester, Orange, Putnam, Rockland, Sullivan, Ulster, Columbia, Dutchess, there are 8,000 homes for sale currently. And those I'm assuming that those are ones that are also pending. That number, by the way, is 32% less. It's 32% fewer homes than it was last year at this time. That is a huge difference. So like when we talk about inventory being tight, like inventory is like very tight. And I got, this is the latest report that I'm looking at, which you can kind of see on my phone there. It's from an organization called Pattern for Progress in Hudson Valley, Pattern for Progress, the Center for Housing Solutions and Community Initiatives. And they actually just put out a really great regional housing market report. They're looking at it through the lens of affordability, of, gentrification, of these things that are, really have a big impact on this area. And, just to name a couple little stats from there, because this just came out a couple of days ago, the increase in prices, I'll do like a itty bit of context and we'll talk about strategy, but the increase in prices from Q4 of 2019 to Q4 2020 the prices were up 26.8% in Columbia County, 22.7% in Dutchess County, 30% in Greene County, 63.1% in Sullivan. These are median sales prices, and 20.6 in Ulster. So these are the main, areas that we cover. So that's real. And if you want to get even more depressed or excited by your opportunity to change your expectations, I think that those price increases are probably way more dramatic for the kinds of homes that we post on our site as listings and the homes that our clients tend to like. That's the truth. Because I think that we're still seeing there are some homes that are on the market for a long time, that sit on the market, that, are just kind of have some characteristics that a lot of the buyers we work with don't want, which could be that, again, like it's the things that a lot of people don't want or let me just put it the other way. The things that people do want where things are ultra competitive is privacy, views, a water feature, some character, good design, ideally like either turnkey or just needing some cosmetic updates, somewhere within 20 minutes of a town, and then sometimes within 20 minutes or half an hour of like some kind of public transport to and from New York City. So those are the homes that are super hot. I would say that, interestingly, one of the ones there are two that are like the most likely to cause multiple offer situations, I think, right now. So this is good to know. And one is that it's really turnkey ready, that you can just move in tomorrow, because I think everyone is tired. Everyone has heard that like this has been a year. It's been a year and a half. It's been a long few months. And a lot of people just don't want to do the work right now. And everybody has heard, which is true, that contractors are in very short supply up here because there's so many people doing renovations, so many new buyers, some people trying to build from scratch, because they're not finding what they want in the market, so that means that contractors are really hard to get. So the two things so turnkey-ness is something that's most likely to trigger a multiple offer. The other thing I would say is some kind of something special about the design or character of the home. So like there could be a turnkey home that feels like it's kind of basic with very basic finishes, and those ones can sometimes sit on the market for a little bit. Like if you have something special, like my lovely home here, those get sold in like 4 seconds. So that's it. I mean, this house we bought for, I don't make you feel shitty, but we bought this for like $250, 4 years ago. And this house in the condition we bought it in would have been, and this shows that price differential. Like we did some renovations, but I think even in the condition we bought it in would have been in the 400s for sure this year. Because we have a creek, because we have 5 acres, because it's in Kerhonkson, which gotten popular. It does have the character. Kerhonkson. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mention that. So that's a thing. So I guess what I want to start by saying is, that this is going to sound weird, and I know it always sounds weird to people when I say it, is the house is only part of the awesomeness of being up here. It really is. So you could have a much like less cute house than you wanted to end up with and still end up with an awesome, like if you're buying it as a weekender, if you're buying it as full time, it like kind of doesn't matter. You can end up with your lifestyle and the ability to be around nature and the ability to like be in these small communities that have a ton of awesome energy right now. That's still gonna happen, even if the house isn't your dream home. So that was one of the things I really wanted to like kick off by saying, because I think that's really important just to keep in mind, is that like the reason we work in a huge area is there's a huge area of awesome places to live up here. There just are. Like, it's not like, oh, if you don't find a house here, then you go to the like sucky, crappy area. It may be that like, if you don't find a house here, you go to an area that's a little bit longer of a drive from New York City, which tends to equal lower costs or has fewer like cool restaurants that have opened up in the, last couple of years. Like it does not mean that you're ending up with something, in a terrible place. Yeah. So, you know what? And actually, I just love this question about if we work with like the less Instagrammable properties, like fixer uppers and things. And I think so. It probably helps to just even like say a couple words about how it even works to work with us as buyers, because I don't know that that's always clear, because we have a team, and now I see Angelica's here also. So all of the buyer's agents on our team are here right now. So we have Monica, Angelica, and Billy are the 3 buyer's agents. Karina and Lee, who I think is also here somewhere, are both showing assistants who are getting kind of going through training and getting their licenses. So when we're working with clients, we can show any home on any multiple listing service. So let's start with that. So it's like, we can show any house up here. That's how the system works. That's how the multiple listing service system works. That's why, so when we work with buyers, one of the things we ask for is that they sign, it's called an exclusive right to represent. It sounds very fancy, but it basically means that you're working with us, we're working with you, we're making a little commitment to each other, so that we don't basically bust our humps, bleed out of our eyeballs trying to find you the perfect place, and then get the phone call, which keeps happening, which is like, oh, hey, I saw this other thing. I went to an open house this weekend, or I just called the listing agent. It's cool, right? Like, I'm going to put in an offer through that person. No, we're having none of that funny business anymore. So we're actually talking to people about signing that agreement up front, because we do work with, the one thing I will say about fixer uppers, and this is what's a little bit hard, is that when it gets to 250 and below in this market, that also used to be fine. We used to be able to find things. It was cool. But that price point is so competitive right now that our advice in general for people looking at that price point, 250 and below, is to go directly to the listing agent. Because you might, to find something that you want as a fixer upper, you might have to see a million houses in a million different areas and get beat out by really aggressive, unfortunately, investors and cash buyers a number of times before you get to your house. And so that is one thing that we, for now, are taking a step back from. That's sort of like the minimum cutoff. If you have, and this is going to sound shitty, but it's just like a practical decision, but if it's 250 cash, that's a little bit different, because then we can help you win the house, so you can be competitive at it. But I would say that this is one of the things that's a little bit of and again, if you're 250 and I want a house in a town, and it's fine if it's a ranch, I don't care if it's on a road, and you have super reasonable expectations, that's where we might totally be able to find something. If you say 250 and under, and you're like, I would like it, I want it to be a fixer upper, but I want it to be on 10 acres, and I want there to be a magical waterfall in the 10 acres, and I want a paddock full of unicorns. Then we have to say oh, hey, that's awesome that you want that. We wish you well. Call the listing agent directly, because the listing agent, and the way it works, so we do a lot of dual agency in our business also because of Instagram, because we're so, I don't know, so many people find our houses through us. And what that means, if you ever see one of our listings and you want to see it, you call us. The first question we ask is, are you working with an agent already? Are you not? If you say, I'm not working with an agent, great. Then we schedule it with one of the buyer's agents on our team. We'll show that house. But legally, we all function as one person. Legally, we are one person. We are dual agents. And at that point, if you're working with us, we no longer represent either side. We don't have fiduciary duty to either the seller or the buyer. So that's kind of interesting. So what we become is a transaction. We essentially coordinate the transaction and facilitate the transaction. Practically speaking, it's very, very similar to how it normally works, because the main things we can't do is give either side specific advice on negotiations, on numbers, but we can give both sides all the general context, oh, look, here's what the housing market is doing, or, just a reminder, you have 16 other showings scheduled. We can give all that kind of general information. And then the negotiation, it's going to sound weird, but is really only 5% of our whole time together, essentially. Like we have then full-time transaction coordinators, as I was saying, who helps like make sure the deal goes smoothly. We can help if there's a problem with title. And then after you close, there's a full-time post-purchase concierge buddy, Valentine, who can like help if you need to find a plumber or a roofer or someone to like manage an Airbnb or whatever it is. So that I love doing that. In a perfect world, I would honestly do dual agency for everything, but we don't have all the listings. We only represent a tiny percentage of them, and we don't give our own buyers any like extra boost when it comes to reviewing the listings. They all, I mean, the offers, they all get considered equally. But what the buyer's agents do is that we have an extremely secret Slack channel called Houses We Should Sell. And all of us are looking all the time across this huge area. And like, if we see a house we think is cool, which really like, honestly, the houses there do get from like, are probably from 200 up, sometimes even lower, you know, because we're seeing things, we're seeing interesting opportunities, and we just like post it and then we all see it. And then if somebody sees a house and they're like, oh, hey, this house looked cute, actually poo-poo caca in person, then we also share that information. Or this house looked cute, is cute, but has some road noise. So if you have a client who like is cool with a little bit of noise, this could be a great opportunity for them because it's going to scare a lot of people off. So we have that. It is. Yeah, it's a technical term. I did my associate broker exam recently, and they talked about the difference between poo-poo caca homes and homes that are just, you know, undervalued. So yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So, okay. So I'm hearing a lot of people talking about like value and is it going to retain its value? And like, how the hell do you win when there's like all these like these above ask offers? So, and actually the range, I like that. So I think that the other question is like, what are the hottest price points for this kind of aggressive sort of market behavior? So let me take a step back also. So when you work with a buyer's agent on our team, the first thing that we do is we do a consultation. And the consultation, we try and like poke holes in everything that you say to us. I mean, not in a bad way. Like we try to like see if there's anything that like you're not saying, anything you're not thinking of, trying to help you think of it. In general, right now, what we're telling everybody is if the top of your budget is, let's say 500,000, we're telling everybody if a house is new on the market like that week, you should only look at things that are 20% below your budget. So that means if your top of your budget is 500, you would only want like, and a new sick house comes on the market and it's 475. It's like not worth it to see it. It's basically like, wait a week. If there's something weird about it and it doesn't go to multiple offers, then you can see it. But like that first week, things are routinely going 10, 20% or more above ask. That's it. So one of the things that we do, and we're pretty like aggressive about, like we just like, we really, 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 really scour everything and talk to agents to find good listings. So we're looking for the listings with like bad photos. We're looking for listings with like a bad description. Like we're looking for everything. We're looking for deals that fell through, came back on market. So we're looking for the things that are going to be less sort of obvious. It used to be that 400 to 500 was like easy peasy, no problem. You're totally going to find something. I would say that now, so what we've talked about as a team, like the range that used to be less competitive was 400 to 700. And for a long time, it was 400 to 700. I've talked to agents who said it's like 10 years because 400 was like kind of expensive for a weekend home. Over 700, you get people who have, you know, are getting their bonuses in March and can afford something super expensive. Now that range is probably 6 to $1 million. So really 600 and below, we're seeing a huge ton of competition. And like every $100,000 you get lower, it's more competition. That's just real. Doesn't mean we're not finding houses for people, but that's just like real. So, you know, I think that's the thing that's hard for, particularly for anybody who's been looking for a while. Like the home that you saw last year that was 350 could very well be over 500 right now, particularly after a multiple offer situation. So I think that, oh, I hear what's happening. I'm hearing myself. You guys hear that? I don't know how to mute everybody. Gonna figure it out. Mute. No, I can't find it. That's fine. Oh, Mark Sobel's unmuted. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think that, yeah, so right. So let me just answer this question. If you guys are looking at one of our listings and want to bring a different buyer's agent along, do you view that negatively? No, absolutely not. So on the listing side, so when me and Danny are putting on the listing agent cap, we treat everybody equally. In fact, we have to be like extra fair. You know what I mean? Like we're probably, you know, we kind of go to like, not, I mean, not extreme lengths, but you know what I mean? Like we really try to make sure that no one, even there's never any possibility that someone would get special treatment because they're one of our clients. I will say that the reason I think it's not bad to work with one of our buyer's agents for our listings is because our buyer's agents are all amazing at multiple offer situations. And most of the time right now, you're not going to be competing. You're not going to be negotiating. If it's one of our listings, if it's a super, you know, popular listing, you're not negotiating with the seller anyways. You're trying to win in a multiple offer situation. And that is, and I can just say this right now, that is the one, our like secret strategies for that is the one thing I can't really share here because I think we do things a little bit differently for that. And that is something that like we're trying to just like keep a little bit on the DL for our clients. But I can tell you that the reason we're good at this is because a lot of our clients, like our team, just to give you a sense, our team, you know, worked with around 120 clients last year. It's around $500 million. 500, I wish, $50 million worth of sales. Our average price point is 500,000. We sold houses that were from like 150 to 2.5 million. We work in a huge wide range. This year, we already have almost $25 million of deals that are closed or pending. And this is just January. I mean, it's just early February. So we have a lot of volume. So for each one of those deals, a lot of times some of the buyer's agents, like I lost a multiple offer situation last weekend. I'm working with a buyer to train Lee and we lost it. And we were waived the mortgage contingency. So we wouldn't negotiate after inspection. We did a bunch of things that looked like it would help. We didn't get it. So what happens is our team every day at 8:30 in the morning, we do a team huddle and we're constantly talking about this stuff. We're talking about what worked, what didn't work. And then on the listing side, because we sell so many listings, we're looking at the offers that come in. We're seeing how our clients react to it. And we're able to like get a lot of information about like, okay, if you do this, this will piss sellers off. If you do this, it could be an awesome way to win without having to spend more money. So we're seeing a lot of these things. So yes, no, we will 100% not view it negatively, but I will say that like our buyer's agents are really smart at structuring these things. So that's it. So I think that, oh, bonus time. Yes. So, okay. Somebody wrote and said that they reached out to us all the way last summer. So here's what's happening is that we have been a big old fat mess trying to deal with that waiting list. Like we had at one point over 300 people on the waiting list to work with our team as buyer's agents, hence trying to get through, like get new people on the team so we can work with more people. And just know that anybody who works with anybody in our team is getting like, we're all helping them. Even if it's a new agent, like they're not, you know, they go through like super extensive training. They're shadowing me. They're shadowing one of the other agents. So you guys, Karen and Aaliyah, if Jen, if you want to make a mental note, like, or an actual physical note, we should look at we've tried to get everybody who has been waiting since summer. I think we've tried to email everybody, but if we missed you, we'll try again. So that's what I can say. What we're trying to do now is at least have consultations with people and get them started, because one of the ways that you can win as a buyer is that you can be really religiously looking at I'm going to say not Zillow, but realtor.com. Zillow is not great at updating when things are pending. I would say that look at realtor.com. They're a little bit better about that. So just like have those alerts set, because one thing that we do is like if somebody, it's way easier for us right now if somebody says, hey, there's this one, like we talked to somebody this morning and they're like, there's this one amazing home that we think is great. We looked at it, it's active. We're like, we will never be able to find a home. We are not going to find 4 other houses for you to see that are like that. We were not going to find one other house for you to see that's like that. It's a total unicorn. It's one of those ones with bad photos that like completely I miss, like all of us missed. We never saw it really. So we're going up and we're seeing it with them. So 2 things there. One is like work with your agent, whoever you're working with, and just be like, make sure that like you're also sending them things. And if you're like, dude, that's the agent's job, like what's the problem? It is the agent's job. But the thing is that because right now we're all working with, other agents are working with also like 20, 30 buyers at a time, possibly, because we can't find houses to show everybody every weekend. They're just going too quickly. So it's great to like be active and be like, here are a couple of things that I saw. What do you think? That is really awesome. The other thing I would say is be ready to come up and see something, even if it's one showing. Because if in this market, if you wait until we can like somehow scrape together 3 or 4 houses because you want to get a feel for the market, that is like it's just a risk. And also, if we really can't find 3 or 4 other houses for you, then we're going to just pad the day with 3 or 4 other poo-poo caca houses, to use the technical term, because there isn't much stuff. And to give you a sense of this, like we had clients last weekend, we had 5 houses on the list of stuff to show them. By Friday, 4 of them were gone. 4 of them were gone. And then we lost the multiple offer situation on the last one. It's really brutal. So I will say when I bought this house, this one here for 250-ish thousand, it came on the market on like a Sunday. My agent at the time told me about it. And I came up on Monday to see it. I came up on that Monday to see it. I put in an offer without my husband having seen it, which can be tricky because usually they want both parties to see it. He saw it for the first time at inspection, but we did a FaceTime tour. We had talked enough about what we both wanted that I felt really confident about this. That's what I did 3 years ago to get this. So in this market, that is going to be like speed is going to be incredibly helpful for you. I think that the one caveat to that is if somebody knows that there's already going to be, if an agent gets a sense there already will be multiple offers. So if a house gets listed on a Wednesday, they have 20 showings already booked by Thursday. If you want to put an offer on Thursday, like you run up, you're the first one to see it, you're ready to rock and roll, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, we're accepting offers till Monday. That's what's happening because they want to like give a chance for everybody to see it. Now, you can put in a very aggressive offer. So if you're looking at a house well below your budget, and this is what's happening, this is why this is happening. If you're looking at 500, up to 500, and you see a house that's listed at 300 and you want it, you're like, I'm going for it. You could put in an offer, just be like, take it off the market at 350. Let's call it a day. And that might work. That might be enough to get them not to show it all weekend. Sometimes you have to go higher than that, but that is one thing. Speed definitely helps. Cash does not always win. Cash does always help. I see that as a question too. The reason it's helping now is because appraisals can be a little bit weird. They've always been a little bit weird here because of these 2 markets. They're getting weirder. So a lot of sellers are nervous about the appraisals. Cash doesn't have that issue, and it usually closes in 2 months instead of 3. But we 100% have had buyers beat cash offers with financing. We absolutely have multiple times. And it's hard. You gotta bring your A game, but it happens. And somebody asked the question in Instagram stories. Oh my God, my dog is actually outside. I left the door open. Stewie! Oh my God. Somebody asked the question in Insta stories about, like, it was basically like, will cash always win, or could I like win them over with my sparkling personality? It was a very cute question. And here's another. So our team generally, and in general, you're no longer actually allowed to submit letters with an offer. So this idea of like sending the like love letter with your photo essentially violates a ton of fair housing issues. And you can see how this would be. You know, think about how everything could be used in the bad way. If you're like, oh, that is a person of color. Hell no, am I selling my house to them? We do not want that. That is nothing anybody wants. So that means that we can't mention things like marital status. You're not supposed to mention things, even, you know, gender, occupation, like all different kind of things are like a no-go. So on the side of the buyer's agents, our brokerage has instructed us, just don't even send those letters anymore, because it could open you up to fair housing complaints. So again, picture if most of our clients, I don't believe, are trying to do anything, but there's such a, you know, I mean, systemic racism is called systemic for a reason. So you may not be saying, look, we're like a happy white couple, but that's what you can be saying with a photo. So that's why, or whatever else you'd want to be saying. So I think that that's something that is, you're probably not going to win them over with your sparkling personality. The one thing we have had people do still is write letters that have nothing to do about themselves and are all about the property. Right? So that happens. So, and that's usually okay. So if you're like, this property is amazing, I love it, I love what you did with it, it's so cool, I love the views, whatever, then you can, I mean, we're still technically not supposed to send those letters, but to me, it's like, if it is literally not about the person writing it, and we've scanned it a million times for fair housing things, and sometimes that's a little bit borderline. By the way, when agents send us letters for their clients, when they're submitting offers in our listings, we never give them to sellers for the same reason. Because the seller is the one who would get in trouble, and the agent could get in trouble too. But like, it's been too long in this country that it's been a problem. Okay, so gosh, there's so many questions. Does somebody else on my team want to explain the appraisal stuff? Monica, you want to explain that?
Sure. Hold on, I didn't see
Why
this.
is that, like, what's the appraisal weirdness? Why is that an issue right now?
So with the appraisal, there's a few different factors to it. And I would say that one factor that's so pertinent right now is that the market is increasing pretty rapidly. But even before all of this kind of craziness, kind of to your point before, that things take quite a while to close up here. So on average, it's going to take 90 days from the time that you put an offer in until that property actually closes. So when you're looking at Zillow and you see properties that are pending or that have been sitting on the market that maybe have an accepted offer, keep in mind that the price that you see is not the price that it sold for until it actually shows that property sold and closed. So you could see something on Zillow that's 400,000, and when it closes, all of a sudden you'll see the price is updated to 550 because of the multiple offer situation or whatever other factors kind of drove that price up. So with the appraisals, one, the data is usually about 3 months behind. And in addition, there's just not a lot of data. So in New York City, if you're trying to look for comps for a property and you're looking for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, that's 1,000 square feet within a mile radius, you'll have hundreds at least of properties that you can compare this to. Price per square foot in New York is also something that people really look at, where up here it's really counterintuitive. So one, you look in appraisers try to keep all of their data within a certain radius and a certain time frame. So if they're trying to keep their data, let's say within 5 or even 10 miles when you get to more rural areas, and then you're trying to keep it within the last 3 to 6 months, sometimes you won't find anything, or maybe you'll find 2 or 3 properties that are comparable as far as the specs go, but then you have to factor in these different things that we talk about so often, because they're things that our clients really value, things like charm and cool architecture and unique views or unique character to a house that an appraiser won't always factor in. Appraisers, unfortunately, we never really know what to expect. I think that there is a level of opinion that does go into an appraised value, because if somebody sees that something was well done or that they appreciate the kind of aesthetic value of it, sometimes we've seen things that we weren't expecting to appraise come in at a much higher value, or things that we expect to appraise come in much lower. I didn't hear you.
I was gonna say, I can think of one A-frame in particular where,
Yes, and there's a few experiences
yeah.
where we've had that, but yeah, one time we had an appraiser call and say, "Oh my God, this house is so cool," and it was a house that we did not think would come back at a full appraised value, and it did, and that was, for me at least personally, a moment where I realized, okay, the appraiser's opinion of the house really does influence it, at least in some situations. So yeah, I would say the biggest issue is, one, prices increasing 3 months, like a 3-month price increase is going to affect the fact that the appraisal might not come in at the value, and also the lack of data.
And the home has to be closed. Like the deal has to be closed before that data can be counted. So that's the thing, is like, even if we can say to people, there's a contract on this other home, look at this, they sometimes will be like, okay, well, look at it, but they're not using it as a comp, which sucks. So I would say that we assume that a lot of homes will not appraise now. And we
Yeah.
actually, that's one of the first questions I would say we ask in buyer consults is like, do you have extra cash to be able to have a cushion for this? Because if it doesn't appraise, you basically have to put in more cash most of the time, because sellers are not really super willing to negotiate here.
And I think it's important to kind of register that the appraisal happens a little bit into the process. So you're not putting an offer in and then the appraisal happens a week later. Typically, you're in contract for a few weeks before the appraisal gets ordered. And then the appraiser calls to schedule the time to go, which can take another week or two. There's times where you're already 2 months into the process before the appraisal report comes back, or sometimes even longer. And then the seller and you as a buyer are, in this situation where you just spent 10 weeks. And if you don't have that additional money to put down, then, in this market, sellers aren't going to negotiate because they can probably find someone with more cash. And that's just unfortunate, but true.
Sometimes they will, but it's rare. And actually that's a way to win at this market, is to, like, if you can take that into consideration, and not everybody has the cash to be able to take it into consideration, but if you're prepared to say you're willing to accept a lower appraisal and you could move forward with that, you can either borrow a higher percentage. You could, instead of doing an 80-20 loan, you could do a 90-10 loan, or you could actually put more money down. If you can say that you can do that, even by like $15,000 or $20,000, some houses it has to be way more. But I think that that's definitely one of the things that we try and talk about in advance so that we can prepare a really good offer for people. Oh my God, Monica's on the move. I love it. Can't keep a good woman down, I tell you. Yeah. So to answer the question, does it help to use local banks? Okay, Monica, I'm unpinning you now. Then we'll bring somebody else on here. Bye, Monica. I mean, you're still here, but
I didn't realize I was pinned, so thanks.
Yeah, of course I pinned you. No, you look great. Does it help to use local banks better appraisals? So yes, it does. It helps in general. They're often better and quicker. If you use a national bank or New York City bank, they will use local appraisers, but the appraisers are so backed up right now with refinancing and everything else that what we're seeing is the national banks or non-local banks are getting like, kind of like, I'm trying to think about what I can legally say, but the appraisals are coming in lower when it's not with local banks. I'll just say it like that. And the local banks do not like the appraisers that they use do not like give you extra points or whatever. They don't, the appraisers, contrary to popular belief, like don't give a rat's behind if this deal happens. They really don't care. They're just doing their jobs. The local ones though tend to know the market better up here. And the good local ones are the ones that the local banks have access to. So you can always, always, always reach out to us and we'll give you like our current list of like 4 or 5 people that we're loving at local banks. And they're all busy and it'll be hard to talk to any of them. And yeah, that's another hilariously fun part of the process. Having a local bank is a way to win at being a buyer here. If there are two offers that are close and one is with a local bank and one is with like Quicken Loans, the seller will take the one with the local bank all day long, and they should, because the local banks, it's like the loan, it's like the originator and the underwriter are like sitting like this. They know what's going on. They know how to deal with private road maintenance agreements and all the weird stuff up here. And it's super easy. Tips for people who are going to use an asset-based lender. We're doing that since we're looking for this house as an investment property. So I'm not sure, would it be somebody like doing a portfolio loan? Is that what you're talking about? Probably. So basically, or non-conforming loan. So if people are looking for a non-conforming loan, it means that like it doesn't fit like the requirements to send to like Freddie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. And different banks that we know, Jeff Bank up here, Rondout Bank, will do that stuff, and they will look at your like assets versus, or they have more flexible requirements, essentially. I don't, honestly, I don't know asset-based loans, so I'd have to look into that. So my apologies. You can always write us and we can try and find it. They're just going off the value of the house itself, not your debt to income. Hasn't come up, and we would have to know more about it to figure out if there's any additional risk based on for the seller and how we would present it. So as long as you can present it so that it doesn't have a risk, it's not a problem. We're buying a 2-family house right now in Kerhonkson, should be closing in a couple of weeks, and they're going to actually be able to use a lot of the potential rental income towards the debt to income ratio that usually impacts, how much you can borrow, which is great. So how do we think the vaccine will impact the market? And I can tell you that 99% of the questions were basically like, should we wait? I don't know, blah, blah, blah. I feel like Billy or Angelica, do you guys want to take this one? We'll get some other people talking here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an unknown. No one has a crystal ball to say for sure 100%, but I think that the general consensus, amongst us as a team and agents in general, is that it's not going to, this rush to come upstate is not really going away anytime soon. It seems like the biggest driver of this is the remote work, which does, that's not necessarily going away just because, the vaccine is out. And then when we talk about statistics and how few houses there actually are, and then when you even take from that the subset of houses that our clients are really interested in, that's when you really start to, see how limited it is. And it doesn't take a lot, to get that market really, really hot.
Yeah, I think that's that what Billy said that's really important is that, I mean, two things. Obviously, the remote work changes everything, but if you add a certain number of people who are going to be able to work remotely forever, or at least for the next year, plus the very, very limited amount of supply, you have a problem. And people are not selling their homes. Somebody else asked that in this chat about like, will people start selling it? But they're not selling them, even though the prices are high.
Two factors, really. It's of course, we all know that there are a lot more people looking upstate, but in addition to that, there's a lot less homes that are actually being listed than there were. So it's really just this like, double compounded issue that's making it harder and harder.
And I think the other thing that is always like it's just true, is Airbnb has completely changed the nature of the global real estate market, let's say. And I talked to somebody recently who was saying how Airbnb hasn't been priced in yet into anywhere, essentially. So, and I think, Billy, I think this is true for most of our clients. They're looking to Airbnb at least some of the time. Like, we don't work with that many just pure investors, but people can afford more if they know that they could rent it out for, like for the weekends they're not using it, and earn, a significant amount of money. And so that
a lot more people with second homes and a lot less
Yeah.
that where they might be moving and then they'd be selling. Now they might be moving and they might keep it. And that's another big part of it. So a lot of the people that bought homes upstate during COVID, they're not going to sell even if when they do maybe go back to more work setting, because they can keep it as this, rental income, second property.
Which gets to the last question that just came in, which is how do we expect inventory to increase or change over the next few months? And although we do our special increased inventory happy dances every day, I don't see inventory increasing enough to even come close with the increasing number of buyers, which I think is going to still rapidly increase. Some people will drop out of the market for now, but some people will say, you know what, this may be our last chance to get a house up here. Like if prices keep going up. And so we're seeing more and more people like that. We're also seeing people who are not buying in New York City because they're saying prices getting a little softer there, and who are moving. That's the other thing driving the higher prices. They're moving the whole budget up here, which was always the case. All of this was always the case. This is just like accelerated. I mean, I think we're hoping that we see some more houses. Like the traditional time we would see more houses would be in a couple of months, like around spring. So we're hoping some people are at least like holding some awesome listings back that they want to show in the spring. But
You'd think there'd be more, but there'll still be less than last year and the year before.
yeah, I mean, I think that number is really, I mean, that number is so interesting that that's down, 30% from last year. I mean, that's a huge percentage to be down. And it's probably like, particularly, I mean, if I look at the total closed sales, the percent change of closed sales, I mean, the number of contracts is up in most places because like the house comes on the market, it goes under contract, and then it's like gone basically. So what do we count as spring? I mean, technically here it's probably actually May, like in terms of how it feels, but it's people trying to get a house before summer. So some houses will start to trickle in at the end of this month already in February and in March. But then I think we do see a bunch of homes usually in April, because then that's when things look really pretty and it's, you could still get in for a lot of the summer. I don't know. We're hoping. We're hoping, and in the meantime, we're just searching around pretty much. So, all right, Billy, stay there for a sec. Let me see if I have anything else that you can answer. Oh, this is a good one. How long do sellers typically wait to sign an offer letter?
I think it's usually just a matter of days, maybe a day or two.
And the follow-up question was, what does it mean if a seller is stalling to sign an offer letter after accepting an offer?
I think that, your instinct is to think that they're holding out for some better offer, but maybe there are times when they're really just mulling it over. I think I had an experience like that this week where, the seller just waited an extra day. They said they had an allergy attack and, we believed them, and then they signed it the next day.
Stuff takes like an unbelievably long amount of time here. So like, it sounds like impossible to me that like somebody couldn't just find a way to sign an offer letter. And yet I think we do see that stuff pretty routinely. It's the same with signing contracts. Like you think that they would get the contract, they would sign it immediately, they'd be able to schedule an appointment with their attorney, but sometimes it can take a week to sign a contract because they're like at work or they're trying to find time to schedule a meeting with the attorney. I think I like Billy's attitude here, like assume the best and, prepare for the worst, which is until you're under contract, the house is always a little bit, they're not supposed to move from an accepted offer. There are some ways, particularly in the first 3 days, that the seller can move to a different offer. Okay, Billy, I'm going to unpin you now. Thanks, Billy. You'll still be here. I'm not kicking you out of the room. I'm just moving the pin. But yeah, I was just going to say there are some ways that people can, that sellers can move to a different offer, particularly in the first 3 days after it's signed. So one of the ways, again, I'm just going to say again, like one of the ways to win as a buyer in this market is speed, like speed in everything you do. Like when you come to see a house, like don't Don't come and see a house unless you're prepared to put an offer on it that day. Just don't. It's going to be like heartbreak galore. Like, be ready with your financing, be ready mentally, be ready in all the ways you need to get yourself ready. Like, this is not a market where waiting helps. And one of the things that we do that I think actually is helpful for that is we tell everybody to look on Google Maps. So if there's a house that looks cool, go to Google Maps, do a satellite view, and then do a street view if possible. It's not always possible. But you will eliminate like 80%, but like a good 40% of the houses you want to see by doing that, because you'll be like, oh my God, this is next to a huge factory, or it's right on a road, or the other houses, it's on 35 acres, but the other houses are really close together. So that's a real thing. So how do you find a buyer's agent? A couple people asked about land. How do you find a buyer's agent for land and not only houses? So we have not traditionally worked with buyers for land. And the reason is because land is a little complicated. Like, each lot, there's so much information. Like, does it have approvals for septic? Does it already have an existing septic? Does it have a driveway? Can you get broadband there? There's just like, can you build the thing you want to build there? It's a lot of work. And it's often, like, land is also very popular right now. And it just is something that it seemed to be like we would just get kind of mired in these situations trying to get information from towns. Yeah, I think that the best way to look at land, I think, is to call the listing agents. You know, it's kind of like the 250 and under thing. The listing agents will probably know all that stuff because it's their listing. So they won't have to like call the town, do the research, you know, whatever it is. They should theoretically know that. Estate sales, a thing upstate. So what there aren't, I don't see that with the house with everything in it necessarily, but that where you do see them, there are tax auctions, which gets to a different question. So there are tax auctions once a year in most counties where you can get homes like that. We don't work with those. You almost always have to pay all cash and you have to go see it. It has to be as is. It's a very specific part of the market. So we don't work with that, but I would look at that. And especially for land, tax auctions for land are awesome because you can go and look at the land first and then just decide if you want it. So, you know, and you'd have to figure out like how much risk you're willing to take on in terms of, can you get a septic system there? Or you can always get a septic system pretty much anywhere. It just would be if it's below ground or above ground. Above ground is much more expensive. So does down payment matter in a multiple offer situation? This I can help you with because this is actually an interesting one. So I think our theory is that if you take the appraisal into consideration, if you say, I will move forward with this house as long as it appraises above this number, then you can have a lower down payment and you show that you have cash to cover a low appraisal. Because basically, if one of the primary reasons people want to see a higher down payment is to cover, you know, to know that the people have enough money to move forward if there's an issue with the inspection, if there's an issue with the appraisal. So as long as you can show that you're good on those fronts, we have people who can waive the mortgage contingency entirely. And somebody asked that earlier, like, do people really just like rock up with $500,000 in a duffel bag? They don't come with a duffel bag, but yes, there are a lot of people who have cash in a bank account for a lot of things. But the interest rates are so low that even people who want to pay cash are getting financing right now. So that's one of the things we talk about, particularly in multiple offer situations, is how to like make you look like the super attractive buyer if you don't want to put a ton of money down. And usually what it is you kind of start with like, we're going to put 5% down, but we can pay more if we need to. You know, that's kind of the ideal. But we've seen people getting offers accepted with 5 or 10% down. So that's not impossible. So, you know, that's kind of good to know, I think. But getting your financing sorted out in advance and talking to your bank about what are the options if there's a low appraisal, what can we do, if something comes up, would be really good. Okay, here's a good question, and I like this one. It says, should you expect every house to sell over asking by how much on average? So I'm going to say that not every house will sell over asking. They won't. The ones that have been on the market for like 3 months probably won't. That said, even houses that have been on the market for 3 months, annoyingly, this is a real estate truism, but it's real, is like even those homes somehow magically all get like multiple offers the same day, which is irritating. But it's, based on like other houses come off the market and all of a sudden people looking in that price range, like that's the only option. And so they kind of pile in. So it doesn't mean you're totally safe. But if you're not on a multiple offer, we just negotiated down a house for a client this weekend. We got almost 10% off the asking price for a home that had only been on the market for a week. So it's not impossible. It's not impossible. So when I say like, for the really super schmexy ones that have just come on the market where you feel like, oh, there's gonna be a million, offers, those are the ones you definitely want to budget 20+% over ask. But there are other ones that don't need that. And the more work you're able to do and willing to do, the better, really the better chance you have there. So I think that like, a lot of the questions were like, should I wait? Should I buy something now? My really strong recommendation would be to buy, and I really feel like this, and I'm buying more property now. So I'm voting with my feet or whatever it is, I believe the prices are going to keep going up. I don't see a reason they would stop. And I wish it did. I think it's going to be challenging. I think it's going to get more challenging, but I would buy a house now that you like good enough, like that you're pretty into, but like maybe it's not perfect, because then if the prices continue to rise, you can be in this market already, and then you can sell that house at a higher price and buy a house at a higher price. If the market goes down, it's less of a big deal, because if you sell your house and the other house, the prices will also be going down. Oh my God, he's so embarrassing. Look at him. Can you see I'm not like a professional dog trainer? Jeez, he's out of control. So I think that that's a good thing to think about. And I think that this is where, one of the things that we talk to clients a lot about is actually kind of like the more existential questions. And this is kind of what I want to end on, is like how you can go through this process without it being horrible is the other thing. Like, so that's like, because, one of the things that's so interesting working in this business is that I can see where people make the situation worse for themselves than it is. And I can see where people make things easier for themselves. And it's really kind of amazing. It's like this sort of amazing, ability to like peep in on people's lives. So one of the things is just being like, if you want to find a house in this market, you can totally find a house in this market. You're fine. You're good. Just know that. And if you know that, that's cool. And then it's like every multiple offer thing you lose, every house that goes before you see it, it's just part of the story on the way to you getting your house. And that's it. And this house that I love so much, this was not the first house we put an offer on. We had an accepted offer, had done inspection. We're going to contract on a house near Saugerties, and the seller changed their mind, and it's like, they just were like, nope, we're not selling. So I wouldn't have ended up here if that hadn't happened to me. So I'm like really, really, really a big believer in that. Like those houses that you lose that feel horrendous just end up being part of your story of like where you end up. So the more that you're able to like trust us and like help us guide you in this process, I mean, at least I know for my team, like the better off the more likely you are to find that house. So if we're like, this house looks pretty cool. And then if you're like, meh, I don't like the tile in the bathroom or something, like maybe you're not going to find a house. So maybe don't be so confident. No, just kidding. But if you're willing to, it's like either compromise. I mean, in a perfect world, you'd be willing to make some compromises, move quickly, and like see things that like maybe don't look perfect to begin with, then you're definitely going to find a place. And I think that, and I think also like doing the work beforehand and like really looking at the listings and being honest with yourself is like, this one, something I can compromise on. Like, yeah, are the bathroom tile wallpaper choices questionable? But maybe you have said you only want a 3-bedroom because you have like certain friends or family who you know are going to want to visit, or there's a reason for that. Then don't see a house with 1 bedroom, because you're basically going to go there, you're going to fall in love, and then you're not going to be able to buy it, or you're going to buy it and you will actually legitimately be pissed off at yourself. So it's a weird mixture of like the process that we work with clients and the consultation throughout the process is like more and more like, where do we compromise? Where do we compromise? Where do we not? Where do we not? You know, is really just keeping on like refining that with every house you see on Zillow, with every house you see in person, with every conversation you have, so that you can be like, you know what? We're not saying what we want here. Like we are willing to go another 30 minutes further away from the city. Great. But for somebody else, that's not an acceptable compromise because they may need to commute 3 days a week. But the things that you can compromise on are basically, it's either price, location, condition of the home, and then design or character. So what you can't do, and this is the people who make themselves feel a little, people who are not going to have fun in this process, if they're like, this is my price, I want this condition home, I want it to be in this area, and I want it to have a ton of character. It's like, that's awesome if your price, that's awesome if your price is, if your budget is okay for that. If your budget is not okay for that, then wanting that doesn't make it happen, for lack of a better way to put it. Like I'd be super into getting like a pied-à-terre in like the West Village now, because we gave up our apartment in like Clinton Hill, and I would like to pay no more than $250,000 for it, because I feel like I'm not going to go there that often, whatever. But like, guess what? The world does not give a crap about that. Like, it doesn't care what my budget is, or the fact I'm not going to use it that much, or like, that's what I could afford today. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not getting my studio apartment in the Village for like $250, right? So it's the same thing up here where people are like, I feel like these houses should be this much. And it's like, well, okay, that's cool. We all have feelings. We want to talk about your feelings, but they're not, So I think that that's the, and again, like, I just want to state for the record that sometimes you end up with something, and this we always say, like, if there's a house you fall in love with, you go for it, right? You go for it, but you always wish for this or something better. Like, I hope this works or something better. And you just keep that in mind. Like, is this going to be the one, or is this going to be the one that's part of my story of how I found my house? What is it? So I really feel very strongly about all this stuff, because I think that, like, I've seen, we are all of us are seeing people who are finding houses right now, and are doing it. And then we're seeing people who are like hitting their heads against a brick wall. So we want to help people not hit their heads against a brick wall, basically, but like find the house. And I think that, I don't know, that's it. I mean, I think these are all the sort of big questions. I don't know if anybody on my team, like Danny's not on video right now, Angelica's not on video right now, if anybody else has anything else that they wanted to share, or like final thoughts about stuff.
Well, I would say, one way to be successful is to look now in the winter before all the people that want to look in the spring come back to look. Although it's competitive now, it'll be as, if not more competitive going forward.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. And right now, and this is where like we can see those ugly pictures, and the sellers, like if something's been on the market for a while, the people who are selling right now and putting it on the market right now are generally doing it for a reason. Like their work is moving them or transferring them, or, whatever it is. There's like a reason. Like they're not like, we want to wait until it's beautiful in spring and we're going to like make a boatload of money on our house. They're still all hoping to make a boatload of money. But, and if you do want to work with, I know there's at least 2 people here who are like, dude, we've been waiting since the summer. But like, if you do want to work with our team, we do have a link in our profile. And I don't know if Jen, you want to like post it in the message too, but like, we are trying to take on people, and I'm telling you, we will really bleed out of our eyeballs if you will do all these things that we're talking about. If you like are committed to working with us exclusively, if you're willing to come up quickly, if you're willing to be a little bit open to what we're saying, and you really want to find a house, then you get a lot of our time. I think, to me, actually, one of the most, like, one of the scariest things, and it's actually on a drop down in our buyer questionnaire, so it's probably our fault to put it there, but one of the scariest things for me to hear out of a buyer's mouth is, we're ready, but we're going to wait for the perfect home to come along. That's like, okay, great. Like, how did that work out for you for like dating or something? You know what I mean? Like, does that, you just like sit around? Like, what happens? Like, or like your career or anything? Like, that's just not how, it's not how this market tends to work. And I'm not saying it's a bad thought. It just is not a practical thought right now, because you're going to have to like wait and then bid on that one perfect home, which whatever is not perfect. There's a lot of homes that you're going to fall in love with.
I was just going to say there's kind of two holes in that theory. And one is that there isn't a perfect home. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. And two, if you're kind of in that mindset of waiting around, you're not in the right mindset to move quickly. So when that quote unquote perfect home or close to perfect home pops up, there's a good chance that you don't have all your ducks in a row because you weren't like ready to go.
And I think that there's something, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the phrase confirmation bias, where like, you believe something, and so then you just keep seeing evidence for that. So if you look at a home and you're like, I'm waiting for the perfect home, I'm not sure that this will be the perfect home. It looks like a little whatever. When you go and see that home, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I knew it wasn't a perfect home for me because it has this and it has this and it has this and it has this. Along the same way, this works with like, I'm going to find an awesome home upstate. You're going to be your mind is going to be looking for evidence about how that you're going to make it work. You are going to find a home, and you're going to look at those houses and think of all the ways your time there is going to be awesome, instead of being like, meh, I hate this toilet. It's real. Like, it's real. I mean, that's one of the things that we say, and Monica, you can speak to this too. It's one of the things we say in multiple offer situations. The moment there's a multiple offer situation, I believe, this is my new theory, that everybody's minds, all of the buyers' minds, start counting all of the faults in that house. Because in that moment that there's a chance you're not going to get it. So all of a sudden you're like, I like it. I don't like it enough because remember that toilet seat was weird and whatever.
You're convincing yourself to feel okay losing it because you got yourself so excited.
Right. So instead of like, our goal is always like, we're going to like go hell to leather for like getting you that house. And we're going to know that you're going to be fine if you don't get it. But we're not going to like shit talk the house you're trying to get. And then you put in like a half-assed offer. That's not a good strategy. And I would say we see that kind of a lot too, where people are like, I like it, but meh. And so I'm going to put in an offer like this because I think it should be this much. And you can just think about Megan, me trying to find like my, pied a terre in the village, which by the way, team, we could all use it. So if we find a nice studio apartment somewhere in the West Village for $250,000, we're in, It's like, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think it's worth. It matters what the seller thinks it's worth and what the market thinks it's worth. So I think a lot of what we do is like more like psychology than anything else. Is like helping you see where you're hurting yourself or could be hurting yourself. We're not, and that includes, by the way, and I've heard Monica say this, I've heard Billy say this, I heard you saying this just like yesterday, where you're like, hey, I don't think this house is for this person because of these reasons. I think it's way too much work for what they could take on. We say that too all the time. So if you're about to make something that we perceive to be possibly a risky decision on the other side of things, like, oh, remember when you said you needed 3 bedrooms because you needed like your Nana needs to come every summer and then blah, blah, blah. And now you're in a 1-bedroom. Like, where's Nana sleeping? Where is Nana sleeping? That's how I want to end the question here. So All right. Anybody have any last thoughts or anything else? If not, this has been a long one, but I think it's a good topic and we spend so much time thinking about it. So, well, I really appreciate everybody being here and I appreciate everyone on my team being here, our team being here. It's good to see y'all, not just in the morning. And yeah, again, just know if you want a house, you're going to find a house. That's it. That's the take home message. That is all you need to know. So thank you, everyone. Bye.